Black CEO removed from VIP seat for a white passenger. 10 minutes later, the entire crew gets fired. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. It begins like any ordinary business trip, but what unfolds next will make you rethink how power and prejudice collide. She boarded that flight expecting peace after a long week, unaware that a quiet injustice was waiting just ahead, one that would spark a chain reaction nobody on that plane could have imagined. Her name was Danielle Harris, a 29-year-old powerhouse in the tech world, graceful, brilliant, and self-made. As the youngest Black CEO in her company's history, she was flying to New York to deliver a keynote at a global innovation summit. Her words would inspire thousands, but for now, all she wanted was rest. Dressed in a soft gray suit, hair neatly tied, she moved through the airport with quiet confidence. No entourage, no designer flash, just focus. Her presence commanded respect, even from those who didn't yet know her name. To her, success wasn't about being seen. It was about being prepared. What no one on that flight realized was that the woman they were about to underestimate had built an empire that stretched across continents. It was a calm Friday evening at LAX, the kind where travelers shuffled between gates with tired eyes and coffee cups. Danielle arrived early, preferring peace over panic. She breezed through check-in, exchanged a polite smile with the clerk, and made her way toward gate A7. Her flight, a red-eye to New York, promised comfort and quiet in first class. As she handed over her ticket, the attendant greeted her with a practiced smile. Danielle exhaled, relieved that her exhausting week was nearly over. She pictured herself asleep before takeoff, but as she approached the aisle leading to her seat, a flicker of unease rose in her chest, a silent warning she couldn't yet explain. Row 1A, her assigned seat. But when Danielle reached it, a man was already there, legs stretched, sipping champagne like he owned the cabin. He didn't even glance up. "Excuse me," she said softly, showing her ticket. The flight attendant standing nearby barely looked. "Ma'am, you must be mistaken. Please head toward the back." Her tone was sharp, dismissive, like she'd spoken to a child. Danielle blinked, confused. Around her, passengers watched but said nothing, eyes darting, lips pressed. The man leaned back, smirking, one eyebrow raised as if daring her to argue. The air thickened with quiet tension. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a message she knew all too well. Danielle calmly explained that her ticket clearly showed seat 1A. She even held it out for the attendant to scan, but the woman waved her off. "Mr. Blake is seated there already. Please take the open seat in 18C, she said curtly, pointing down the aisle. Gasps rippled softly among passengers, though no one spoke up. The man smirked wider, raising his glass as if in triumph. Danielle felt the sting of humiliation, the quiet burn of being disrespected in public. Her heart pounded not from embarrassment but from restraint. Years of composure had trained her to smile through storms. With a steady breath, she picked up her bag and walked toward economy, each step echoing louder than the last. The injustice was clear, and the silence of others made it heavier. In row 18C, Danielle sank into the narrow seat, gripping her tablet. The hum of the plane masked her thoughts, but inside, a storm was raging. She remembered long nights building her company from nothing, fighting through every doubt, every dismissal, every stereotype. Yet here she was, still judged before being known. Her reflection in the window stared back with quiet fury. She wasn't sad. She was calculating. Years of leadership had taught her when to stay silent and when to act. Her eyes hardened, her breathing slowed. One message, one call, and this flight would change course, literally. And soon, those who thought they could move her would learn just how much power she carried, even from the back of the plane. Danielle's fingers moved quickly across her tablet. Her humiliation was real, but her control was absolute. At the top of her screen glowed the name Marcus Reed, her mentor, and the chairman of the tech conglomerate she led. He also happened to sit on the board of the airline's parent company. She typed a single measured message. Immediate issue of discrimination on Flight 214. Please contact Skyline Air's CEO within 5 minutes. She hit send, closed the tablet, and folded her hands. No anger, no scene. Just silence. Her calmness was unsettling, even regal. What had begun as an insult was now turning into a test of accountability. She looked ahead, expression unreadable, while the rest of the cabin hummed with oblivious chatter. But somewhere high above, powerful strings had just been pulled. Minutes later, whispers began among the crew. The lead attendant's smile stiffened as she leaned toward another, murmuring under her breath. A soft buzz spread like static. The plane, already moving down the taxiway, slowed, then stopped completely. Heads turned. Confused murmurs filled the air. The intercom crackled, and the captain's voice broke through, uncertain. Ladies and gentlemen, we're returning to the gate due to a crew matter. Danielle didn't move. Her tablet rested quietly on her lap. To anyone watching, she looked like just another passenger. Calm, almost serene. But inside she knew the message had landed. The balance of power was already shifting, and the next few minutes would show everyone exactly who they'd underestimated. The cabin door opened again. The captain appeared in the aisle, hat in hand, his face pale and uneasy. Behind him stood the flight supervisor and 2 airport officers. All eyes followed as they approached row 18C. "Ms. Harris," he said quietly, "would you please return to your original seat?" A murmur rolled through the cabin. The same passengers who had watched her humiliation now sat in uneasy silence. Danielle rose gracefully, but before she could move, the supervisor gestured toward the crew. "You 3, please gather your belongings." The attendants froze. Confusion turned to dread. No explanations came, only the captain's tense expression. The woman who'd dismissed Danielle stared, trembling. One by one, they were escorted off the plane. Order had shifted, and the cost of arrogance was suddenly clear. The cabin fell into absolute silence. The same air that had once felt thick with judgment now felt heavy with guilt. Passengers stared, unsure where to look. Danielle walked back toward row 1A, every step deliberate, quiet, commanding. No anger, no gloating. Just quiet authority. The man who had taken her seat lowered his gaze, pretending to adjust his cufflinks. She placed her bag down, sat, and opened her tablet again as if nothing had happened. Around her, whispers spread, fragments of apology, disbelief, admiration. The attendants who replaced the previous crew moved carefully, speaking softly, almost reverently. The story wasn't over, but the message had been delivered. Respect is not given by title or tone. It's earned. And it can also be reclaimed. The flight resumed with a new crew, quiet, efficient, careful. The air felt lighter, yet charged with unspoken awareness. Danielle sat calmly in her rightful seat, eyes steady on the clouds outside. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. Her victory wasn't in seeing others punished. It was in restoring respect that should have been there all along. The man who had claimed her seat kept his gaze fixed downward. His earlier arrogance dissolved into silence. Around them, passengers shifted uneasily, each one replaying what they'd witnessed. The anger that had burned in her chest softened into reflection. What mattered now wasn't revenge. It was the lesson left behind. A quiet reminder that dignity never needs to raise its voice to be heard. The following morning, Danielle stood beneath bright lights on a grand conference stage. Thousands filled the room, waiting to hear from the woman whose company had changed industries. Her voice was calm, poised, magnetic. She spoke of leadership, accountability, and the quiet courage required to do what's right even when no one is watching. Not once did she mention the flight, yet every word carried the weight of it. Cameras flashed, applause echoed, and within hours her speech went viral, not for drama, but for grace. People around the world saw in her what true strength looks like: power without cruelty, confidence without arrogance. And for those who doubted her, silence became the loudest answer. By afternoon, headlines erupted across news sites and social media. The airline released a public apology, confirming that multiple crew members had been dismissed and retraining programs were being launched. Statements from executives followed, each one careful, polished, and full of regret. But behind the press releases was a growing conversation about bias, professionalism, and accountability. Danielle's name trended for days, not because she demanded revenge, but because she modeled restraint. Colleagues, journalists, and everyday travelers called her a symbol of professional justice. She hadn't shouted, protested, or filmed the incident. She had simply acted with precision and purpose, proving that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one made in silence. The narrator's voice softens. Incidents like this aren't rare, they just rarely get seen. Discrimination doesn't always come with slurs or shouts. Sometimes it hides in subtle gestures, in assumptions, in quiet dismissals. This story isn't only about a CEO or an airline, it's about how society judges before it listens. Danielle's calm defiance became a mirror for everyone watching. It asked a simple question: would you have spoken up? Each